Happy Tech Tuesday to you. I've been hearing a lot of messages, and one of the things that I'm hearing is as we restart and as we get back into our skating, there's going to be a bunch of people that need new skates, and they're wondering, can I use an old blade with a new boot and a new boot with an old blade and vice versa? But one of the things that's about that is with the blade and the boot is putting them together, and that's making the mounting happening. So let's talk some basic principles about mounting. First off, the ideal center position, as you can see right here, I've got an outfit. This is a boot and a blade put together in a factory, brought over, is the tangent. See that right as the flat line hits the top of the boot, right there, the blade's centered on that. And then if you look at the heel, when you bring up the tangent point, see how it's at the very bottom? That's what I would call a center mount. This is where 99% of us live. There are those people that the physicality of the foot structure needs a mount that maybe the front is out, or the front is inside, or the heel is in, or it's out, and it's slight adjustments. And we're talking like just, minimal amounts. But just wanted to show you that a good center mount like that, you can see again, tangent of the top, tangent of the bottom. Then you skate on it, get your adjustment, and then find out. And one of the things is, the two different major styles of boots out there is the traditional is the outsole is on the outside, and then the new one edea is revolutionized is the inside. There's that same part you're going to put the screw in. There's the outside of the material. You can see right here it's wrapped through, and that's what the screw is actually going to lodge in. And that's why it's a synthetic material. This is a leather. A lot of people are using synthetics at the inside. This is actually the stop inside, what you would put the insole on. These are both without insoles. Your insoles go even on top of that. So you can see how this one has the sole that you're going to plant the screw to exterior, and this has the sole interior wrapped with the boot, and that's why you get that shape like this. It's actually, you're going to be putting a screw into that part right there. Whereas here, I took actually a lot of this away. You can see the upper is wrapped to here, and theirs, they're wrapping it all the way around, and then that's why they laminate it with a sole. So let's talk about making a mounting. I got two pairs of boots here. This is a 9 3/4 blade, and how you measure that 9 3/4 is you take from the heel to the toe, and you can see 9 3/4 there. From the very heel, very toe, not quite, just over 9 1/2, 9 3/4. So that's a 9 3/4 blade. Usually they're also stamped on. You can see this one's stamped right here, 9 3/4, and that's the measure from here to there. I have, in rare circumstances, found a blade that's not there at the exact stamping, and that's usually a QC issue, and every manufacturer I know would always return and replace. This boot, then, let's measure it. It says it's a 6C. Let's measure what that is. So I put my heel to my toe, heel to toe, and you can see right there, there's a 9 1/2 right on the dot. So what happens when I put that on, when you mount that, you're going to flush the front with your finger. Take it away. See, that's a pretty flush front using my finger. But what happens is at the heel, it's not killer, but you can see we're over that little bit, and that extends the heel, makes it a little longer. It makes doing the back threes, back counters, where you're going to do that turn and in and of here, moves that whole balance point so far back. So you got to lean way back. So that's why most times a lot of professionals will want a flush mount, because that gives a very standard, a very easy, that's enough to access just even that much. It's amazing how much it can influence or inhibit your skating. I actually skated with my mount usually almost in. You can see an eighth in off. So let's take a boot with a longer sole. So this is a size 7. And it's always good to check with your manufacturers of the boots to make sure what they're recommending. So I got my at the end. You can see this is about 10 2/8. So that, I think, is going to fit this blade pretty beautifully. So I can actually subset it now. See, I push my finger. See how I push my finger and there's the fat of my finger hangs over the edge? And I can push my blade up to it. And it gives me that, just the back little space. And I go at the heel, and I look at it, and you can see, nice center set. Now how do I get that centered like I had on the outfit? Well, I always like to look down on the sole. Now the misnomer is, yes, we were looking at the whole sole before with this whole piece. Yeah, and it's all black at this point, and you can see the upper rolls inside, so the outer is actually pretty good. But when I get to elite skates, because we're doing so much more lean, notice how the sole is trimmed back away from the upper, because we want to fit the foot first, and then you basically, most people are living within a centered space. And the same thing with my edea. Let's get a fresh one here. Even with my edea, you can see the upper is out here and the sole is the inside. And even with mounting, especially as we turn that way, see how it kind of tapers here at the edge? You're usually, and this one's already been pre-mounted, I was going to show some how to put the screw in on that, but you can see where the screws are lying within. You can see, actually, see where it bevels off, where the kind of rolls to the outside? See, that's the thing is, the upper, you want to fit the foot and then get as narrow as possible, because as we're skating here and you're tipping, see how now we've got the sole out of the way? When we do that with our younger skater, see how the sole is going to hit the ice? If you're doing aggressive cross cuts, you're going to hit the sole. But this helps us make it sure that there's a consistency, there's an allowance for a young kid if you need to spread out the boot, if they're going to be stretching it. This gives the space, that's why oftentimes. But that's also why when your coach is saying, hey, you need to upgrade because you need skates that can help you skate a deeper crossover, part of the reason is as we go up into elite skates or more elite equipment, you can see now you can get a much better lean to that. And the same on the other side. You can see the tapering it away. You can see it's basically been built to lean that way. But with that, the number one issue, and it's the same with edea, it's the same with us, you have to apply that finished top coat. So to get so reliant on the top coat when you're mounting, I think is a disadvantage that creeps up a lot of times in mounting when I see helm mountings and everybody does the best they can to apply this sole, but you gotta look at the foot when you're mounting. You gotta take the width of this and look as it comes around. Where is the shape, where is the tangent of the white part, the upper? Not necessarily where the sole is, because this could be off a 1/16 of an inch either way. And the same with this one. There could be a 1/16 of variation. You see how very tight that is in there? So I'm always focused on the distance when I'm mounting. I'm actually looking, I'm gonna get this stool and stand up here because it'll be easier. So I'm actually looking at the tangent. So I'm gonna look at that. And so you see how there's a little bit more on this side than there is side, but you can see I'm looking down the center of the blade. I'm checking to make sure I'm not too far with my finger right here, like that. Now, I always find soles like this, and even these ones, I like to get a Sharpie of a very different color, and you can test, you can see, I can see that very easily here. So I'm gonna get my Sharpie ready. Look at my shape of the foot. And I know people are going, hey, what about the heel? I get it generally in the right spot. I do them one at a time. That was the way I was trained. And like skinning a cat, there's 1,000 ways to do this correct. But I find for the center mount, this, for me, has worked the best. So you can see I made a nice buried mark. All right, got my 2 drills. I'm lucky enough to have 2. Sometimes it takes a little longer. So I'm gonna put my mark in the center of the hole. Well, I like to try to hold my drills as even as possible. Some people, you don't want to go off crooked, so I try to pretend that the boot is on a flush surface, flat surface, get my drill straight over it. Sometimes you see those drills with the air bubbles on them. Nice in the center. All right, now one thing important about the different holes that you're using is also which different screw head. So this is a cone and this is a pan. Notice the pan is like a biscuit, and this is like a triangle that goes into it. There we go. So cone, pan. There you go. And that correlates to the different types of screw holes. So I'll put the pan here. See how now it sits nice and flush there in the slotted hole? cone one, if I put the cone one in that one, see how it sits up a little funny? It doesn't actually seat in there. There's just too much play. And you'll notice that the Elite blades are all beveled in these singular holes. See how nice and flush that sits? It's going to pull down the whole blade. So that's cone and pans. Pans are for the slotted. And because we're going to do it later as well. They have the same in edea. See, there's the cone. Oops, drop that. And then there's the pan headed. Now theirs is interesting because it's got a bifurcated thread, but it has no point. And as they've seen before, they've measured it out. So as long as it's pre-drilled all the way through, these usually, I keep dropping it. These go working very well. All right, let's keep going with my skate. So I'm gonna put my, the new thing is stainless steel, and sometimes they're not as magnetic. I always leave like this much play in it. So I got my front is mounted really well. I'm just double checking everything. I like where it went in. It's giving me that good tangent look. See that? Nice tangent at the top of the circle. All right, now I'm back here at the heel. Now again, you guys, actually we're gonna do it this way so you can see. I'm gonna stare at you this way. So I can't actually, when I'm using my eye, I can't actually see the sole. I'm only looking right here at the upper. And I'm looking down the Achilles tendon of the skater and how it's going to be in there. Because I'd love to say, these are stitched. Somebody puts that on a stitcher. If you look real closely, there's slight variations, you know, and they cut off the threads, and somebody's hand stitching it. That's part of what makes this so expensive, is you got to go around and stitch each one of those. And so the thing about that is, these are stitched as well. Someone puts it on a pattern. You know, there's a slight variation from this one to that one. They're very good because they do hundreds and thousands of them, and it's amazing. But to rely on this versus what you see as the shape of the heel and where the Achilles is going to fit, and especially if you tried them and you heat molded them or shaped them, rely on the width of where the Achilles, because look at that seam right there. See how that seam is more on that side for that? It's a perfect flip over stitch, you know, they stitched it and then they flipped it over. But see how it leads to one side in certain spots? Don't rely on a stitch. Rely on the shape you see. So it's like the forest for the trees. See the forest, don't see a tree, kind of thing. And so I look down the heel. Let's see if I can point it right at my camera here. I'm looking right for that, and I'll tip it because that'll give me the shape from the tip of where the Achilles comes through. And it's almost like a sunrise of the blade tip. I want to make sure it comes right through that. And I actually use my fingers right here underneath the sole to help give it that balance, because see how gravity wants to pull it down the heavy toe, and that helps get me the directional shape. I see that. There. Okay. I hold it on with my fingers. Find my fancy Sharpie. And I know people are going to ask, why did you not use a slotted hole? Because I want to make sure my starting point is exactly where it is. I feel comfortable enough putting epoxy and leather and filling a hole. If I really need to move one, I'll be honest, 9/10 on the dollar is there. Doing it the way I'm doing it. Do I make adjustments? Yes. Do I often have to? No. It's not about being perfect. It's getting it as close as I can the first time. Again, I'm going to use a short one because if I do, most of my changes are usually about the heel. Some of that is just the interplay between the connection of the heel and the sole, and people have heard that about as well. You know, these are screwed on. These are screwed in and screwed on and glued on as well, and so that's probably where the most variation of a skate will come from, is the heel attachment. And so what, you know, mounting to mounting. So make sure I'm in my pre-drilled hole. see if it works. I obviously can't guarantee it, but my old coach used to say, you know you're in the middle if it's standing on its own. Ah. Now, the two important things that make this happen is one, it's not fully, the blade and the boot are not cranked down, but you can see I took a blade that had never been mounted on here. Ooh, there it fell over. But you can see I got a level surface and a decently sharpened blade. I can make it stand on my own. So I know that it's centerized to the balance of the boot. Now when I put the foot in there, blows it up. Because again, structurally, maybe when you bend the knee, and I was thinking of this actually as I was waking up, I was like, how am I going to explain this? Because there are people that say, let's get a better picture here. Say there's your knee inside this and it's centered, but you tend to push to the outside. Well then, you're going to want to counteract that force, and that's where that, that bow-leggedness you want to put in, or your knock-kneed, and you're always pulling in here. Well, you might have to shift the blade to the inside. See, this is the big toe, and this is baby toe. The second part of having this centered is how do you activate the knee? I mean, when I was first starting to skate, I kept knock-kneeing in, and I kept landing with that knock-kneed in, and they worked on me to think of leaning this way, which actually put my legs centered, so then I could mount centered. But for the longest time, I was mounting to the inside to counteract, as I would hit the toe pick and I would lean to the inside, I would be falling here, and so I'd actually be adjusting the blade in to fall me out as my knee, I'm trying to fall it out as my knee is trying to push in. So getting that proper alignment and listening to my coaches to get that knee action in there so then I can have a center mount is most important. And that's why it's like, well, mountings can get you one way, but your activity, what you're doing with your knee, and the coaching is second. All right, so still so proud. There you go. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so, and then you lock it down. You hear my phone ring. I wonder who's calling. I feel like Mr. Rogers sometimes doing these things. So there's my temporary mount. Now, just with these two, I would let a skater go. Just test it, gliding forward, gliding back. The number one pet peeve I always have is kids get out there and they go, test it, and they go, now this 8-pound melon is pulling me down, and I'm looking at it from the side, and I'm evaluating. Don't let your head get into your skates. It just doesn't fit in there. And so the big point about this is test it with some crossovers. Test it on some 3 turns. 2 screws is not enough for most people. If you're a strong adult, you're really gonna rip on it, yeah, you're gonna have to add the slotted. And that's, again, pre-drill, then put them in nice and tight. All right, so we were talking about the edea, and let's use, actually, we'll just take this blade out. And actually, here's a good thing. If you're ever interested in adjusting your blade and you don't know how to move it or how much, I'll give you an example. So I trace it with my off-colored marker here. Just like that on the outside. And I usually do the heel as well, because some of that, sometimes I get messing with it, pull it off, and then, oh shoot, where did I have the heel? So this allows me the opportunity see that? Now I've got a perfectly marked space that I can bring it back to. Yes, and if you've, sometimes people do have to make multiple adjustments, and this allows, and then you can do different colors, like a red for the first time and gold for the second time, and then you kind of know which way you're headed and what you're doing. Because it is a lot, like I was saying, inside for this, outside for this. So many times people are getting, oh my gosh. I'm not going to do a perfect mount because it's already got screws in it, but I will, and you can see it doesn't really fit. See, all these are fresh holes. Just generally, I'll mark in a spot. See how, right there? This bit is 1/8. I believe that's too small. You gotta use the thicker one. That's 1/16 as well. Here we go. Yep, 3/32. There you go. So again, hold my boot level, hold my drill level. Notice I'm not through yet. So I'm going to stop there just to show you, because what happens, and I've had this happen, is if you're not pre-drilled all the way through, you get it going, and see how it's pulling up the material? You don't want to do that. See, and it'll fall off, and it won't just seat. If you're not getting anywhere, it means you haven't pre-drilled all the way through. Usually, with the pre-drill, you can see I'm there. You should feel it fall through. You should feel a moment of relief through. Yep, right all the way through. All right, so let's put this on here. And this is the cone head, remember I said? So we're gonna go in this one right here. All right. Got it all placed. And you'll feel just like a normal screw, it'll go in. Now remember, where's my half one? It'll usually slip through really easy through the leather layer. But when you have to have it pre-drilled, and that's the thing, is if you're pressing down, even though you've pre-drilled, but you're pressing down sideways, you could slide through those layers and not hit your pre-drill through this base material. And so it's really important that you try to keep the same angle. Of course, I've been moving all over the place. But, no, I got it. And if you have your chuck on your drill, like I have this one set to about 4. So that means that, see, it's moving, but if I grab it, it's not actually moving. So I use a chuck on my grill because I find it's very relaxing. And so now, just with one screw, same kind of stuff. Very good, very planted in. Okay? All right, so now you're free to go mount your own skates. Remember, look for that tangent of the skate. Don't get into the sole, because as you see, the soles can have some adjustment in and out. Okay? Wish you good luck. If you have any questions, it's marktechrep@gmail.com. Talk to you guys later.